Good morning, everybody, and welcome to David W. Cummings' studio in the Heights of Jersey City. I'm Beatrice, Mady. Thank you to the City of Jersey City, the Office of Cultural Affairs, Art House Production, Mayor Fulop, and all of those involved in bringing us the virtual JCAST. And congratulations to all of us on the 30th anniversary. JCAST, is being great with providing us excellence in art to our community. Behind me, you can see the watercolor paintings of David's. They're typical of his later work, but I would like the viewer to have an overview of the work that David has done. So I put together a short video that will take you through some of his work from the late 1960s to the hand paintings that you see behind me. So if you could please play the video. Thank you. We will start in Soho, New York City, where David was one of the early pioneers moving into a loft on Broome Street. There he created large-scale spray paintings. He worked with acrylic paint and an air compressor. These early works were part of a movement known as lyrical abstraction. These artists, Thornton Willis, Dan Christensen, and others, were the third-generation abstract expressionists. David's work can be seen in prestigious collections, the Whitney, the Phoenix Museum, the Center for Contemporary Art in Antwerp, Belgium, to cite a few. One can see how Pollock, Hoffman, Klein, Frankenthaler opened the doors for this expressive gesture. The full body motion of undulating color line began to become more controlled and eventually solidified into what is referred to by many as the cloud or lip shape. Here we see David's favorite artist, Cézanne, whispering in his ear as he formulates his modernist compositions. Like Cézanne, David was concerned with the flat quality of the picture plane. He was in constant play with the illusion and reality of space. The cloud-lip shapes, rather than being just painted, became a three-dimensional relief. The shape was cut out of masonite and glued to a wooden panel. This was gessoed, and the oil painting began. From the loose gesture, what we can now see a tight overall pattern of dots of color. This flattens the picture plane while in direct contrast with the three-dimensional shapes that were painted with broad, flat, solid areas of color. Some of these works are now on view at a two-person show at the Dvora Gallery, 161st Street, Jersey City, New Jersey. As time passed and David's shapes evolved, we now see these cloud lips morphing into the hand shape. These oil panel pieces are portraits. Like the cloud lips, the hands were traced, cut out, and glued to a wooden substrate. David was a superb colorist, whether he used oil, pastel, or watercolor. Theodore Wolff of the Christian Science Monitor said, "The risk Cummings takes with color are considerable, and include the juxtaposition of colors no sensible painter would leave in the same room together, let alone side by side on paper. But in his case, it works." To highlight the issue of real and illusion even more, David added nails and screws into the work. These are not decorative, but act as an outline to define the boundary and edge of form. Eventually, the oil paint and wooden panel made way for rolls of watercolor paper. The hand portraits continued, but the self-portrait was now more important. Okay, let me see if I can set the camera up here so that you can see the pieces on the wall. Yes, I think, oh, let's just move it over a tiny bit. Okay. I'll take you in a closer, for a closer look. I wanted to show you some of these pieces before we looked at the paper pieces. You know, as I talked about in the video, these pieces are cut out of masonite and glued to the surface. So that idea of real and illusionistic space is seen here. You can see the nails and the screws delineating the form and of the edges of the hand and the edges of the picture plane. David states, I have taken the oldest personal image recording of human beings, the handprint or tracing of the hand, and bring it into the 21st century. It is an attempt to bring up to date the visual self-portrait of the existing individual artist in a fashion that reflects the contemporary interest of color, shape, and form. As the basic shapes are determined, I turn to color, my favorite and most influential tool to produce, define, and control the visual experience. I hope to continue in ancient Paleolithic tradition through the eye of modern art academy trained contemporary artist to produce my very own personal statement of high art. So let me see if I can turn the camera around. Oh, there we go. And take you in on a closer look at these pieces. So here you can see, if we look from the side, that these are actually three-dimensional pieces put onto the surface. And you can see the screws and the nails that act as a definition of form. I'll just go through some of these. And you can see that even though each of the 8 pieces that I put up here for you are similar in size, and the subject matter is all the same, each piece is unique and very different. And I thought it would be fun to take a look at the templates that David used. So he would ask people, friends, collectors, patrons, to put their hand down on a flatly on a piece of paper. Usually he asked people to keep their fingers closed, and he would then trace it with a pencil. That was then traced onto a piece of board, like illustration board or mat board. So those were the templates that he was able to use to trace onto masonite and cut out the hands as you see here. Or as we look at this wall of watercolors, he was able to, let's see if I can get it right there. Yeah, that's good. He was able to trace on the paper and create the images that you see there. To paraphrase Clement Greenberg, the essence of modernism lies in the use of characteristic methods of a discipline to criticize that discipline itself, not in order to subvert it, but in order to entrench it more firmly into an area of competence. He said, modernism never meant to break with the past. It may have been a devolution, an unraveling of tradition, but it also meant its further evolution. And so with David, his art was built on the past. his adherence to the flatness of the picture plane, and his use of modern color theory has moved us into something new, something unique, something different. Color, in its infinite combination and juxtaposition, never ceases to amaze me and others. Critics have talked about his daring, bold color choices. For David, color was intuitive, a joy. When asked what his favorite color was, he responded, all of them. Shape and pattern, be it the grid, citing perhaps the universal language of Distill or the Bauhaus, or the playful circles and lines, one can discern a rhythm. Perhaps this was inevitable, as country music most often played in the background as David made art. David's symbols are simultaneously personal and universal. These are his hands. He has left us a legacy rich in color. He had made a profound mark on the art world. I have lived with these works and looked at them every day. The genius of his work is that one can see something new with every viewing. It is my privilege to be able to show you this work. Let's take a look at some of the details in these pieces. So again, these are watercolors, and they are on Arches paper. David would take a roll of paper, spread it out, and then cut it down so that he could have very long narratives going on, right? These are his hands. And so this is a personal statement about him and his art. So if we take a look at the way he uses watercolor, you can see that, watercolor traditionally is used in a very transparent way. But David uses this medium, watercolor, in a very opaque way. So he had his own way of dealing with the paint and the paper. So I'm going to move in closer to some of these pieces so that you can see the numbers of different variations of themes and different motifs that David has used throughout these watercolors. The watercolors that are hanging up here date from about 2014 through 2019. Up here in several of these pieces, the green hand, the orange hand, and the multicolored hand up here are actually his hand print. So he would dip his hand into the watercolor, and he would then put it onto the surface so that in addition to his traced hand and his painted hand, he also had his actual hand print. This is that circle motif that I referenced earlier. And, the grid that he used, the grid can be seen in some of his earlier work as well. And that work, if you want to see some of that actual work that was in the video, please join me tomorrow at the Dvora Gallery at 1:30. And also, as Jim mentioned in the earlier segment, if you would like to have a personal tour, we could arrange that too. So let me just take
Beatrice, I just want to
Yes.
let you know you've got about 15 minutes left, so I want to make sure you have enough time to show off your own artwork as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I can stop here. And again, let me just thank the people at JCAST for making this possible. So what I'm going to do now is just take a walk downstairs to my studio and show you my work. So I'm just going to
Maybe just on your way down, we just have a couple questions in the chat. And
oh,
on your way down, you could answer them. Does that work for you?
that works. You
Okay.
can watch me walk down the stairs as I answer the questions. Okay.
All
See
right.
my feet.
So we have a question from Galaxy, I believe, Galaxy J5 Prime. Galaxy, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, can you guys hear me loud and clear?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right then. Yes, Beatrice, thanks for the first art show. It was intriguing because when you're talking about hands and nails, it gathered to me because, I believe in Jesus. So I was wondering, was he have any way thinking of Jesus with the nails in his hands, with that combination, hands and nails?
I don't think so. David was spiritual, but didn't follow any organized religion. So no, I don't believe that he was thinking about that, but it is certainly an interesting interpretation.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Well, God bless you guys. I'm still listening and watching you.
Okay.
Jesus loves it.
Thank you.
And that was actually the other question that we had. So I guess another person, Yvonne Buchanan, also got the spiritual aspect of it. So good to know. And Beatrice, you can take it away with your work.
Okay, great. So you all know me now. I'm Beatrice Mady. I am a longtime Jersey City resident. I've lived in the Heights for the entire time that I've lived here. I don't want to tell you that it was longer than JCAST, but 30 years. But I just want to say that, I've seen a lot of changes in Jersey City. I've seen the building of downtown in my neighborhood where it was a mixed zone where there were residents and factories. Many of those factories are no longer functioning factories, but apartments and condos. But I have never experienced anything like we all have globally this past year. And so I would just like to thank the mayor and the governors of New York and New Jersey for taking us on a steady course, following science and trying to keep us safe. I am a Pratt Institute trained painter. I've always taken photographs, but somewhere along the line, I got a Mac and the Adobe programs. And I became particularly enamored with Adobe Illustrator. And it enabled me to integrate my photographs into this vector-based program. My approach, I think, is unique, as I don't really know anybody else who is using Adobe quite the way I do. So I would like to show you a short video of my digital work. And then when we come back live, I will talk about that work and my paintings.
I have picked a few works from the past 3 years to give you a feeling for my digital work. It is unique as no one else uses Illustrator in this particular way. I like Illustrator because it's a vector-based program. That means I can draw images on a blank artboard and not have to worry about resolution. These prints are made in small editions. I do print the work in various sizes. The ink and paper is archival. The digital work contains photographs I take on my travels. I want to incorporate the image into my own iconography. The colors, pattern that acts as texture, are reminiscent of the country or culture I have traveled to. All right, let me see if I can switch this. Here we go. All right, so oftentimes people ask me if my work is a silkscreen. They're not. They're digital prints created entirely in Illustrator and printed archivally on my Epson printer on Hannah Mueller paper. Or if I need a larger image or want a larger image, I will have a G-clay print made. So here you can see an example of both of these. And I'll just take you a little closer. You know, I do incorporate photographs into the work. And this year, as I have not been able to travel anywhere except Jersey City, I have been photographing a lot in Jersey City. I had walked down to Liberty State Park, and some of you might recognize this as the railroad terminus that is no longer functioning. And even though I had seen this railroad station many, many times, I just discovered that the door handle had a very similar shape to the one that I use. So I incorporated that into the work. A vector-based program is inherently flat. So what I do is I create a pattern so that I can create a textural element in the work. And this piece too. This is a photograph from Kirkwall in the Orkney Islands of Scotland. And it's very northern and so cold all the time. So I wanted to have the colors kind of reflect the environment in which I was. So for me, my prints and paintings are all about color. Color is my main voice and the means through which I express myself most fully. As my prints contain photographs, there is recognizable imagery. This is a recognizable narrative in the print. So like I said before, my inspiration is travel, and that influences or directs the color choices and patterns. In my paintings, I am a purist and adhere to the modernist tradition of abstract imagery, color, and flatness of the picture plane. My paintings are about themselves. They are organic in nature. I believe it is necessary to listen to the work and follow the path it takes me down. Helen Frankenthaler said, "Every canvas is a journey all of its own. I never wonder what I'm going to do next. It just happens." So is there a narrative, a story behind these shapes? Perhaps, but it is self-referential. The story is about color,
form, shape, and texture. There are shapes and forms that I do use repeatedly. I divide my space into two areas, the top and the bottom. As you can see here, it's divided by a black band. There are the swans, as they're affectionately known. Thank you, Eddie. And there are the arches and the circles. Can one read into these shapes? Of course, but truly they are shapes that allow me to manipulate with transparencies and opacities. Color is my voice. The size of the work is relatively small. I like to keep the work human size. The scale is more personal. It's intimate. And on a purely practical side, it's easier to navigate. They're more affordable, and they fit into most homes. I'm very happy to have recently discovered walnut and safflower oil, as it has allowed me to get back into painting year-round. These non-toxic materials, for me, have replaced the turpentine that is so noxious. So the 8 pieces that you're seeing here now are the first 8 paintings that I've completed using those oils. And it still allows me to have the loose and gestural brush stroke that's so important to my work. So here you can see some of the transparent shapes and the opaque shapes. So that loose gestural brushstroke is very important to me. It starts out as the underpainting, but I do allow it to show through, and there are places where I reinforce that brushstroke to be part of the textural element. I hope that you will be able to join me at Dvora Gallery tomorrow for JCAST at 1:30. And I also hope that you will be able to see the show in person. There are a number of my large paintings, as I just talked about the small pieces, in that show, as well as some of the work of David from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So again, I want to thank JCAST for setting up this virtual tour. It's really been great. I've watched the first 2 days, and I will watch the rest today and tomorrow. So it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you
Any
so much,
questions?
Beatrice.
I guess I should have asked questions.
Yeah, we have time for one question. If anyone has anything, we can answer the first one that comes up in the chat.
Okay.
Sorry, my computer is having a moment.
We all have those technical
Right?
moments, don't we?
No one is immune.
Beatrice,
Maybe, yeah.
do you have a website?
I do. It's beatricemady.com.
And can folks buy art directly from that website?
No, they have to contact me.
Okay. All right. Well, I just put your website in the chat. All right. Looks like we have one question. If you want to answer quickly, Beatrice, it said, did your
Sure.
work and David's work influence each other?
Oh, absolutely. We saw each other's work for 40 plus years. And yes, indeed, there's no way that you can look at someone's work for that many years and not have influence on one another. So yes, we influenced each other in terms of color and form and pattern.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. It was great to get a
Thank you.
peek inside both of your studios. Thank you for sharing David's work with us.